Seeing people starting to come in. Welcome to the webinar. We'll wait a couple of more minutes to get started while more people flow in. It's the top of the hour, so I'm sure people had other engagements or moving between. So we want to make sure everybody has a chance to get in before we really get started. While you're waiting, feel free to drop in the chat, where you're calling in from, what you're most interested to hear about today. We'd love to get more information about you and what's exciting to you about the topic. It's awesome. Redwood City, Wichita, Florida, Texas, UK. All right. Burwell, I was just at your rodeo a couple of weeks ago, actually, out there. That's great. Staten Island, DC, Charleston, Peoria. That's awesome. Wide-ranging Ireland, love that. Sydney, Australia, Wellington, New Zealand. Very cosmopolitan group here today. All right, we are about 1.5 minutes past the hour. In the interest of everybody's time, let's go ahead and get started. So welcome to the webinar. We had a ton of registrations, over 1,000 actually. So it's really, really easy to tell that people are excited about this topic. So as I think it says there above my name or below my picture, my name is Andrew Brinkman. I am a senior director of product here at Buildertrend, and I'm going to be moderating things here today. So before we really get into it, just a housekeeping item. Feel free to drop any questions that you have during the presentation into the Q&A tab. And I'll keep an eye out for them as the session progresses. And then I still see people adding in where they're calling in from, what they're interested to hear and learn about in the chat. That's great. Feel free to keep shouting out any comments in the chat as well, any reactions. We'd love to keep hearing from you. So that said, I want to introduce our speaker. Welcome, Russ Stevens. Russ is a business strategy expert and the co-founder of the Association of Professional Builders with decades of experience owning, running, and growing businesses. So Russ, let's go ahead and kick things off with you telling us a bit more about APB and your role there.
Hey, Andrew. Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here today and to share this information with the Buildertrend users. So, yeah, awesome. So, very briefly about me, I started the Association of Professional Builders, APB, with my daughter, Sky Collade, who is the other co-founder. Before APB, we actually started out as resellers for Co-Construct, which was back in 2011. And we went on to set up over 1,000 builders with Co-Construct in Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. But what we found was after setting up Co-Construct, we found that builders needed more leads. That was the one thing they were telling us. So we then set up a marketing agency, which led into sales training, which then transitioned into full business coaching for builders. And as a result of that, we now coach over 800 residential building companies worldwide. And one other thing we do, which you may have seen, is the State of the Residential Construction Industry report, which is now entering its 5th year. We've partnered with Buildertrend over the last 5 years to produce that comprehensive annual report for the residential construction industry. And a lot of you guys may have already downloaded and seen that. So that's a quick outline of me. Are we ready to go, Andrew?
Yeah, I think so. And just a little bit more in the way of intro, from the Buildertrend perspective, we've, since AI has become a pretty major topic over the last 18 to 24 months, especially, we've tried to be on the forefront of this. And that's why we want to have this conversation today and why we welcomed an expert like you, Russ. For nearly 20 years, we've really tried to be on the cutting edge of solutions that streamline project management, enhance communication among and between builders and their clients, drive more efficiency. And AI obviously has the potential to play a major role, not just as a standalone tool, but like how we think about integrating it into our product today. And that's a major part of my role, thinking about how Buildertrend evolves into the future. I think it's important to think about, we don't want to just use AI to use AI. We want to see if where how it makes sense to use this new technology to solve problems that might not have been easily solvable before, or maybe problems that weren't solvable at all before. So that's the lens we're thinking through when it comes to opportunities in this exciting area. But again, the main focus today isn't what might be to come, especially for Buildertrend. It's about what tools are here now and how that's already changing builders' lives and changing their businesses. So Russ, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I'm really excited to hear about how you're thinking about using AI to increase building companies' productivity.
Thanks so much, Andrew. So, yeah, over the next 60 minutes, I'm going to be sharing with you guys how you can 10x your building company's productivity with AI. Because if you do want to be able to compete against other building companies in 2025, then you need to be using AI to streamline your processes right now before it's too late. And make no mistake, guys, right now there is a revolution taking place, and not just in the construction industry either, but in every single industry. And the thing is, it is happening at an incredible pace. Now, one thing that history does tell us is that the pace of change increases exponentially over time. So the Industrial Revolution, that took between 80 and 100 years to complete. The electric age then took between 50 and 70 years. The computer revolution, more recent, took just 30 years to complete. And then the information age, and that includes smartphones, that took less than 20 years. So right now, AI is transforming the way businesses operate literally overnight. Now, according to IBM, 77% of businesses are using AI to streamline their operations and increase their productivity. So, how are you going to compete with those building companies in 2025 if you continue to do things the old way? We've already passed the point where you can just wait and see what's going to happen with AI, because if you do that, you've already lost the race. It's no longer about using AI to get ahead of your competition. It is about catching up, and you really need to do it quickly. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you guys today in this presentation, because in this presentation that has been specifically created just for residential home builders, I'm going to give you the knowledge that you need in order to get back in the race and to compete against those other builders who are not necessarily better than you. You know, they don't build better, but they are operating smarter, and that means they are more efficient and they are able to deliver a superior service with less resources, which makes them more profitable as well. Now, before we do kick off, I just want to do a very quick exercise. What I'd like you to do is pull your phones out and open up the calculator app on your phone. And you're going to need two numbers to do this exercise: your annual salary, which is the amount you pay yourself over the course of a year, and the number of hours that you work per week on average. Now, don't forget to include all those evenings and weekends that you spend meeting clients and quoting jobs as well, because that time all counts as well. Now, what I'd like you to do is type in your annual salary, the amount you pay yourself over the course of a year, into your calculator, and then divide that figure by the number of hours that you work each week on average, whether that's 40, 50, 60, whatever it is. And of course, don't forget to include all those evenings and weekends that you do the estimates. Now, what I'd like you to do is divide that figure on your screen by 48. And the answer that you now have is a rough indication of your hourly rate. And let me ask you, how does that compare to the hourly rate that you pay your staff, or even the hourly rate that you pay your subcontractors? Do you feel like you are overpaying yourself or underpaying? Just type in the chat box very quickly and just let us know if you feel you are overpaying yourself or underpaying. Yeah, Matt, underpaying. Jevon, under. Brian, under. Yeah, exactly. And that is what I want to help you to take the first step towards fixing, by outlining exactly what needs to be done, and more importantly, the order that it needs to be done in. But for now, what I would like you to do is write that number down that you just calculated, write that down at the top of your notepad. And while you're doing that, I'm going to press on and get started. Now, I'm guessing for a lot of you guys, this is probably not the first bit of business advice that you've received since you started running your building company. So the first thing that I do want to mention is that if you have ever followed the advice of an accountant, a business coach, or even another builder, and you've not got the results you were promised, then it's really not your fault. The problem is most of these experts are not familiar with the unique challenges that you are facing in your particular building company. Now, accountants do have a tendency to look back at historical data, which, as we've seen over the last few years, is not a good indicator of what's about to happen in the future. And generic business coaches have no idea how to market, sell, or even operate a residential building company. And other builders can only give you one small part of the puzzle that has worked for them without taking into account all of the other components that make up a truly successful building company. And as a result, you end up following the wrong path, which then costs you time, money, and most importantly, it costs you energy. Now, the difference with APB is we've spent the last 10 years working closely with the owners of dozens of $10 million plus residential building companies in order to develop the tools and help enable builders to unlock hidden profits in their business and create businesses that operate on high margins without the owner having to even be there. And all that knowledge, it's all being condensed in easy to follow systems that the rest of our members, who are all builders, not subcontractors, now use to fast track the business. Now, there is a myth out there regarding running a residential building company, because it is often believed by owners of residential building companies that there aren't enough hours in the week to both manage and grow their business. A lot of builders feel constantly overwhelmed, and they believe that being busy is just part of the job. However, recent advances in technology, especially in AI, are revolutionizing our approach to business management. And by integrating AI tools, you can streamline your building company, which will allow you to focus on increasing profitability and growth rather than just trying to keep up in the marketplace. Because by embracing AI to take on more of your admin, you're going to free up more of your own time to work on your building company rather than working in it. So don't let outdated beliefs about running a building company limit your potential, because with AI, you can transform your building company and create more time for growth and spend less time working on the mundane activities, which can all now be automated. And that is why we're here today, because I know you want to make more money from your building company and you want to have more time to enjoy with your family and friends. And the fact is, AI is the tool that will allow you to achieve your goals. All those things that may have seemed impossible a few years ago, they're now within your reach. So long as you take action today, rather than allowing this unique opportunity to pass you by. Now, my goal for this presentation is to help two types of residential home builders. For those of you who are already using AI in your building company, I'm going to share with you some other ways that you can utilize this technology to accelerate its impact on your team's productivity and free up more of your own time. And for those of you who have not even started using ChatGPT or AI in general, I'm going to be sharing with you how other builders are already using AI in their businesses and why you need to get started today. So why are we talking about AI, running a presentation on AI? And more importantly, why now? Well, for us, it started in November 2023 when I was asked to present an event at a presentation, an event for Australia's most advanced marketers down in Sydney, Australia. And while APB's marketing, it may not always be uniquely groundbreaking, the marketing does deliver some exceptional results on a consistent basis. So I was asked to present to this group in order to explain exactly how one of our particular strategies worked and the results that we were getting from it. Anyway, And the presentation wasn't the only reason that we were there, because this was an event that we'd been attending regularly since 2020 in order to hear the latest trends in the world of marketing so that we were always on the cutting edge and ahead of the curve. Now, what struck me about this particular event was the amount of times that AI was mentioned in the presentation and also during the marketers' chit chat in between the sessions. Now, at the previous event, which was just 6 months prior, only one presentation referenced the use of AI. But at this particular event in November 2023, every single presentation touched on the use of AI and how it's being used in relation to the presentation topic. Now, even at the end of my own presentation, which actually covered the strategy behind the state of the residential construction industry report that 2,000 builders took part in, I was then grilled by the audience of marketers as to how APB was using AI to analyze all the information and then write the summary for the report. Now, it was pretty embarrassing because I had to admit that we were still doing it the old fashioned way, where I was booking out a full week in my calendar at the end of the year to complete the analysis and then write the report manually. So it was a massive wake up call. And it wasn't as if AI had even slipped under our radar, because just 1 year earlier in December 2022, after ChatGPT was opened up to the public, we were seeing builders inside our members only Facebook group talking about it and how they were using it in their building companies. And at that point, we knew this was going to be big. And although AI had been talked about for years prior, this felt different. This really was a turning point because AI was obviously going mainstream, and man, did it take off. OpenAI had 100 million people using ChatGPT within 2 months of it launching. Now, just to give you some perspective, it took Facebook and YouTube over 4 years to get to 100 million users. Instagram took 2 years and TikTok took 9 months, but 100 million users in just 2 months. That was incredible. However, fast forward 11 months later to November 2023, and APB still hadn't rolled out anything solid to our members or even implemented AI with any real purpose or structure into our own processes. Now, sure, our team were all using ChatGPT and they're all raving fans of what it could do, but it was all a little bit haphazard up to that point. And we actually left that event in Sydney terrified that as a company, we were being left behind. So the very next day, we called an emergency meeting for the APB leadership team in order to discuss how we were currently using AI, the opportunity ahead of us, and what needed to be done in order to ensure that we were giving our members the guidance and expertise that they expected from APB. And because time was of the essence, we knew we no longer had the luxury of just doing our own research. We believed at that point we'd been left behind and we needed to catch up quickly. And the only way to do that was by bringing in outside expertise, which meant using highly paid AI consultants who could identify the opportunities and then guide us to the right solutions, but very, very quickly. Now, the end result of this consultative period was that we realized that maybe we weren't as far behind as we first thought. However, if we had not taken action, then we would have found ourselves falling further and further behind, and we would have had a very difficult job catching up. Anyway, the AI consultants, they not only helped us bridge the gap and get us back on the front foot with AI, but they also worked with us to develop a future-proof structure that would enable us to remain on the cutting edge of AI development in the years ahead. And it's that structure and knowledge that I'm going to be sharing with you guys now. But before I start, I do just want to be clear. This is not a training session on how to use ChatGPT. I'm not going to be taking you through 101 ChatGPT prompts that you can use in your building company. It's about making you aware of AI's potential both now and in the future, with at the pace it's moving is only about 3 to 6 months away. So the 3 secrets I'm going to take you through today so that you can integrate AI into your operations to enhance efficiency, systemize processes, improve profitability, and gain a competitive edge in the market are how to set up your building company for success with AI by implementing a 3-step framework, how to prepare ChatGPT to deliver the best results for your building company rather than the bland generic information that comes straight out of the box. And my personal favorite, how you can start using AI in your building company today in order to save time in all departments, not just marketing. So, is everyone still keen? Let me know in the chat. Is this what you came here to see today? I'll make sure that this is why you're here. Thanks, Philip. Yep, sounds good. Yep, excellent. Claire, Celinda, perfect. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, there aren't really enough hours in the week to run a successful building company, let alone find the time to work on the business in order to increase revenue and margins. With all the red tape and admin that is now required in residential construction, how can any builder find the time to create marketing content, document standard operating procedures, and write job descriptions, as well as keeping all the projects moving and the sales flowing in? Well, if you are constantly feeling short on time, or if you're struggling to break through that $10 million a year revenue ceiling, then you need to get artificial intelligence or AI on your company's strategic agenda. Now, some builders see AI as a threat, but professional builders see it as an opportunity. And here's the truth. AI will not replace your building company. However, a building company using AI will. And it's the exact same for your staff as well. AI is not going to replace them. However, employees that can use AI within their role to be more productive, those guys will be the ones in demand in the future. Now, can you imagine interviewing a bookkeeper that did not know how to use a computer, but then try to convince you that they could do the books just as efficiently by manually writing numbers into paper ledgers? Now, it doesn't matter how good that person is with numbers, or even how hard or how fast they work. A bookkeeper with average ability using a computerized account system will always outperform the person doing it the old way. Same with estimators. Why would you employ an estimator that insisted on doing takeoffs manually and then entering those quantities into a spreadsheet? An estimator using dedicated takeoff and estimating software would not only be faster, but they would be more accurate as well. And project managers and supervisors, the guys that can use project management software such as Buildertrend, which automatically calls up trades, identifies scheduling conflicts, those guys then wipe the floor with the supervisors that try to do it the old way by doing it manually. So technology, it doesn't replace people. It enables them to become more productive and more valuable as well. However, those team members that are stuck in the old way of doing things will become less productive and less valuable. Now, we recently polled our members about how they are using AI in their building companies. And I must admit, I was shocked by how many different ways builders were already using AI on a regular basis. High-performing building companies are using AI in their takeoffs, their estimating, communication, project management, recruitment, operations, sales, and marketing. They are also using it to completely automate tasks that could previously only be done by human beings, enabling administrators, marketers, and salespeople to work on more productive tasks that increase productivity for the entire company. However, if you are not already taking advantage of AI, then it's not too late to get started. But you must get AI on the agenda so that it becomes top of mind for everyone in your organization. So you need to start by creating a central information hub for AI, which includes a roadmap for AI adoption within your building company. Now, this central information hub will contain different sections where all of your AI related knowledge can be stored. The actual roadmap containing a high level plan for how you intend to implement AI. That's going to be one section. Other sections, they may contain AI prompts, development ideas, new solutions that you've heard about and you may want to test before implementing, and also the development that you have in progress as well. Another one would be links to resources such as training courses, podcast episodes, and blog articles. And depending on the size of your team, you'd even have a section for each department where relevant tips, prompts, and solutions can be shared with marketing, sales, or operations. Now, having one place where everyone can go to find information, that is a great starting point. Setting individual team members up with the latest paid version of a tool like ChatGPT is also a good first step to take in order to pave the way for future adoption. However, unless you get AI on your agenda, it will sit on the sidelines, and the opportunity to get ahead of your competitors during this adoption phase that we're now in, that may be lost. Therefore, it is absolutely critical that you add a section on AI into all of your regular meeting agendas. Now, weekly leadership meetings, monthly team meetings, quarterly strategic planning meetings, all of these meetings would benefit from having time set aside to discuss who is using AI, how they are using it, ideas for future use company wide, and also any tangible results achieved through the use of AI. Now, one builder in the APB community from West Virginia in the US introduced an AI segment into their team's weekly meeting. And in the very first meeting where they had AI on the agenda, the person that was responsible for marketing talked about how they were using ChatGPT in order to create blog articles by using a multi-stage prompt process, which they developed after watching a video on YouTube. Now, prompts, in case you're not aware, they're nothing more than an instruction or a command which is written out and then copied and pasted into ChatGPT. Now, after the meeting, those exact prompts were then shared by the marketer with the rest of the team, who then use them for communicating with clients via email, saving them hours of time. Because rather than sitting there wondering what to write and how to respond, they had a professional response to a specific question in seconds rather than minutes. And these responses were consistent in tonality and were aligned with what we call the voice of the company, regardless as to who it was in the company that was actually creating them. Now, the following week, the contract administrator, inspired by what she had seen the week before, then went on to develop her own prompt for both creating and updating their standard operating systems. Now, can you imagine every time a process changes in your building company, you just tell ChatGPT to insert the change into your sales manual or your accounts manual or your admin manual, and it does it. It puts it in the right place, all perfectly formatted in seconds. And all this operational efficiency, it all occurred within this particular building company just from the business owner simply adding AI to the meeting agenda. Now, the really exciting thing about AI is that you don't have to do everything yourself. You just got to create the right framework for your team to thrive. And when you do that, they will. Now, a quick tip for you, if you're using the free version of ChatGPT, switch to a paid company workplace and get all of your team using paid accounts. So long, of course, as they are actually using ChatGPT. There is no point in paying for people that can't or won't use it. Now, the benefit of the paid version far outweighs the monthly cost per user, just about 20 odd dollars. Plus, make sure you are taking advantage of the voice activation features on both the mobile and the desktop versions of ChatGPT, because that will save you a ton of time. Now, what that means is you can easily verbalize the outline for an email that you might need to create, and then ChatGPT will literally create it for you in seconds. Or you might be replying to an email. You can just verbalize how you want to reply. And it will do it for you in seconds. So it's not only a massive time saver, but it also delivers a much better response than we can probably come up with ourselves. Now, just recently, a friend of mine who runs an events company, he asked me to write a letter of complaint to him regarding a recent function where the hotel that he engaged to run his event, they didn't really deliver on expectations. And at the time, he was actually in an argument with them about the quality of the service that was delivered to his customers during the evening. And in order to support his case, he needed letters of complaint from his clients that reflected his concerns and his arguments. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm always happy to help out a friend. But the thought of spending 20 to 30 minutes crafting an email, it's just not something I've really got time for during a working day. And it's not really something I want to be doing when I get home during the evening either. So I said to my friend, I said, I'm just too busy. But I said, if you draft something up, then I'd be happy to send it back to you from my email account so you can kind of use it. And what that meant was he now had the same problem as me because he literally didn't know where to start. Anyway, I felt a bit bad, but I honestly just didn't have the time. However, when I left the office a couple of hours later and I embarked on my 3-minute walk home, I pulled out my phone and I opened up ChatGPT while I was walking and I started talking. And I explained to Skynet that I wanted to write a letter of complaint to an events company due to a poor experience that was delivered by the hotel engaged by the events company. And in seconds, ChatGPT, it produced this comprehensive 200-word email, which I then just clicked on it to copy and I emailed it to my friend without editing it one bit. And his response was emphatic because in that email, I'd covered everything that he needed me to say. And he was just so grateful for the amount of time that I'd put into creating and sending this letter to him. So there was no need to explain to him that I only invested 60 seconds of my time while I was walking home. But that in itself, that was a very simple example. I just wanted to share with you guys while we're talking about how AI not only saves time, but it improves quality as well. So in order to get started, you need to get AI on the agenda, and you also need a central hub where you can store all of your AI related information. However, there is also a third thing that you need to put into place, and that is an implementation plan. Now, for those of you that have been around APB for any length of time, you probably would have heard us say a failure to plan is a plan to fail, and it is so true. You need a high level implementation plan, which is nothing more than an intention. It's an outline of how you plan to get started and how you will execute your AI strategy on an ongoing basis. You need to get all the basics outlined along with who is responsible for what and when it will be done. Now, included in your implementation plan could be setting up a company workspace in ChatGPT, for instance. Putting AI on the agenda. This is all part of your implementation plan. Creating the AI information hub. More importantly, how you're going to assess, prioritize, and budget for AI opportunities, and the first AI project that you're going to execute, and the resources that will need to come on board in order for that to happen, and the person that will be responsible for AI adoption company-wide in your particular business. Now, just regarding that, a lot of consultants that we brought on board at the beginning of the year, they advised us at the beginning to appoint an AI champion in the business who would drive AI forward in the company. And that is good advice once you get the ball rolling. However, for small business, which is pretty much all of us on this call, it needs to be the company owner that drives this forward in the very beginning. Now, you may have a great team member that can take over from you at some point once the project is moving. But to get that ball rolling, to get that oil tanker moving, this is just too important to delegate. You must step up as a leader, and you must take full responsibility for this incredible opportunity, because a failure to adopt AI quickly will ultimately mean the end of your building company. So Is that all making sense, guys? Let me know here in the chat box if that makes sense for you. In order to get started, you need to create an implementation plan. You need to involve your team by putting AI on the agenda, and you need to create an information hub. Any do we have any questions so far, Andrew, before I move on to the next section?
We had one that's like a little bit non-specific, like wanted to know of a follow-up in the Q&As from Javon. So if you Javon, maybe if you could ask the question more specifically, we can maybe hit that in kind of the next organic stopping point. Otherwise, it's a couple of builders trend specific questions I can probably just answer more effectively in the chat or just the text Q&A. So I would keep going.
Fantastic. Okay, conscious of your time, guys, so I shall press on. But of course, if you do have a question, feel free to type it in, and we'll make sure we get it answered for you. Okay, so now we've got the ball rolling. It's important for us to make the best of the opportunity that is now ahead of us, and to do that, we have to feed ChatGPT with the right information. Now, back in my day, when the personal computer went mainstream, there was a popular saying amongst computer programmers or developers, as they are now called, which was SECO. Now, loosely translated, that meant that if you put rubbish in, then you would get rubbish out. And I guess it was their way of saying that the computer is fine, the code is fine, but if the operator was an idiot, then the results won't align with expectations. Anyway, it is exactly the same with AI. In order to get the best out of AI, we need to be really clear on what it is we want. And that means we need to provide context. Now, I'm not going to spend too long on this section because there is already a ton of information out there, which is going to do a much better job than I can do in the limited time that we have available. So rather than giving you specific training on what to do, I want to focus on the strategy so that you are aware of what does need to be done. So if you've already played around with ChatGPT, then you've already seen how it uses information that it has previously been trained on in order to deliver a customized response to whatever you throw at it. However, it has not been trained on your specific building company. So it doesn't yet know exactly who you are targeting, the unique problem that you solve, the fears and the pain points of your clients, the voice of your brand, and so on. And of course, if you've not already developed your own marketing messages, then that is something that ChatGPT can actually help you with. You can just have a conversation with it and ask it questions just like you would if you engaged a marketing consultant. However, assuming that you do have your own marketing messages already in place, you will now need to prime ChatGPT with that information so that its responses are tailored to your specific building company in order to avoid churning out the same bland rubbish that everyone else is mass producing at the moment. Now, at a very high level, you can type in an overview of who you are and what your building company does, and then save that information in the custom instructions in your account settings in ChatGPT. Now, what that now means is that ChatGPT will be primed with that basic information every time you start a new chat, which is a good starting point, and it's definitely well worth doing. And if you want to check out how much ChatGPT knows about you, just ask it, and I guarantee it will freak you out what it's already picked up and stored in its memory over time. However, to take things to the next level, you will need to develop a sequence of prompts that go into more detail regarding your ideal client, your unique selling proposition, your value proposition, the benefits, the features, your brand voice. You even need to cover ChatGPT's role as well. So, for give you an example of that, if you want to write a blog article, you need to tell ChatGPT to act like a world-class copywriter. And like I mentioned earlier, there are a ton of trainings out there that will cover the exact structure of the prompts that you need to create, and even templates and frameworks that you can copy and adopt to suit your building company. So I'm not going to go through the prompts in detail with you right now. One resource I will just mention quickly, because it has been specifically developed for builders, is one that APB have developed, which covers all those prompts. So yeah, if you are looking for builder specific stuff, then that has been created for you. Anyway, to give you a rough idea of what you would paste into ChatGPT in order to prime it, here's an overview that I've extracted from the framework that the APB team put together inside that action plan that I just mentioned. Now, you start off by explaining who you are and what you do. So you might start by typing in something like you see on the screen there, and then include an overview of your business, such as we run a custom home building company in Orlando called Orlando Designer Homes, for instance. So you might then add a link to your website so that the AI can perform additional research on your building company. Next, you would then clarify who your target market is by typing in a description of your ideal client. So high net worth, age range, location, but also in that description, you're going to include who you don't want to target. So at this point, you're now at a point where ChatGPT is very clear on who you want to attract, and just as important, who you want to repel. Next, you would cover your business model, the competitive landscape, and very importantly, your brand voice and tone. Now, for instance, our tone at APB is professional, it's inspirational, educational, and it's empathetic. And we write at a seventh grade level. Now, your tone might be slightly different, but you should always stick with writing at seventh grade level, as that will help with getting your audience to consume your content. And finally, at the end of this prompt, always finish by saying, before I ask you to complete the task, do you have any questions? And this enables you to go deeper before tasking the AI to get started. Now, for instance, if you were writing a blog article, you could then say, here is a checklist that we follow to make sure our articles are all of the highest standard. Can you make sure that the article you write checks off these points? And then you just list out all the points that are really important to you, followed by, does that all make sense? Now, when you've primed ChatGPT, and you're ready for it to get to work, you can then give it a instruction. So if you wanted it to create an article, you would type something like you see on the screen now. But you might look at that and you might be thinking, well, if I do all of that, I might as well just write the entire article myself. And you'd be right. The time it takes to create these templates is just as long, if not longer, than writing an article from scratch. However, what about the second and the third articles, or even the 12th articles? And if you're creating a year's worth of content, including articles, scripts, emails, and social media posts, how much time would it save you overall? And how about in the years ahead as well? Now, some builders have been investing $60,000 a year in order to execute this content marketing strategy. And now it's within every single builder's grasp. Doesn't matter how small or even how unprofitable they are. However, there is still one component missing in terms of the content marketing strategy, and that is video. And that's something we're going to cover next as we go through some practical uses of AI for a building company. So let me know in the chat, guys. Did that help? Can you see that in order to get the best out of ChatGPT, you do have to put in a bit of work up front, but then once you've done it, you've got it forever. Now, our head of marketing, Will Blunt, he spent months developing and refining these prompts that I've just shown you a bit of, so that we could reduce the time it takes us to create articles by a staggering 95%. Now, once he developed a proven model that could be used by anyone on our marketing team, he then went on to develop the templates that we've now put into our portal for members. And the results those members have been getting from creating articles using those prompts have been incredible. But very quickly, before we move on, Andrew, do we have any questions yet that we need to cover off before moving forward? Anything been popping up there?
Again, not super specific to your content. In the process of typing one about a question about an art, open API or lack thereof. So yeah, I would just keep going with what you've been doing, Russ.
Excellent. Okay, let's bring it home. Okay, this part is my favorite part of the presentation, which is how you can start using AI in your building company today in order to save time in all departments and not just marketing either. Now, we've already touched on content creation when I went through examples of how to prime ChatGPT. And to be honest, marketing is still the most popular reason that builders start using ChatGPT, because they create articles, scripts, email campaigns, and social media posts for an entire year in minutes rather than days. However, copywriting is only one component of a content marketing strategy, and the other component is video, and that can be both expensive and time consuming. Now, probably one of the most important components of video is sound, because without good quality sound, it's really hard to retain the attention of your audience. And what that means is that you really need to be recording your content videos in a sound studio. But what if you could automate that process as well?
Hey everyone, welcome to the presentation. My name is AI Russ, and today I'm going to be sharing with you how to use AI in a building company. Because if you want to be able to compete against other building companies in a year's time, then you need to be using AI to streamline your processes now before it's too late. Salut tout le monde, bienvenue à la présentation. Je m'appelle IA Russ et aujourd'hui je vais vous expliquer comment utiliser l'IA dans une entreprise de construction. Car si vous voulez pouvoir rivaliser avec d'autres entreprises de construction dans un an, alors vous devez utiliser l'IA pour rationaliser vos processus dès maintenant.
Scary, eh? I mean, this is Skynet happening right before our very eyes. And because AI Russ lives in the cloud, I'm not even quite sure how I can unplug him now. Anyway, I'm sure it's all going to be fine. We just got to remember to say please and thank you when we type in our ChatGPT prompts, because AI never forgets. So you may look at that and you think, well, I can tell it's AI, so it's not really good enough to use. And maybe it's not right now, but think about that. Think about this. This software has only been out for a couple of years. Where do you think this technology will be next year? And maybe you don't have a need for multilingual videos, but it does show what is possible with very little effort. Anyway, the next time I go into a studio to record some videos, that could be the last time I ever go into a studio, which leads me to a prediction for the not too distant future. And that is that live in-person events are going to become even more important in the years ahead, as people realize they can no longer trust what they are seeing on a screen. So maybe think about how that could apply to your own building company, because AI will give you the opportunity to compete with any building company, no matter how large they are or the resources that they have at their disposal in terms of service. Think about what you can do in terms of in-person meetings that will give you an edge. Anyway, we are approaching the end, and I am running out of time. So what I want to do now, I just want to summarize some practical uses of AI in a building company. So we've seen that you can quickly and easily create professional standard marketing content, both in terms of copywriting and video. And that video you just saw, that was actually produced by one of our marketers without me doing anything. What they did, they uploaded 2-minute video of me in order to train the AI. And then they typed up a script and uploaded it and hit create. And that was it. Now, our marketing team, they can literally get me to say anything they want. So imagine how quickly and how cheaply as well you can now produce dozens, if not hundreds of content videos for YouTube, for Facebook or Instagram. And you can even use this technology to create personalized video sales messages, because it's now possible to send out personalized individual videos to everyone in your entire database in seconds. And additionally, you can use AI to make outbound calls to your prospects. Now, this is not like the fluffy, sorry, the stuffy pre-recorded artificial calls that you may have received in the past from auto dialers. These are digital assistants that can access all of your company information and database, which then enables it to answer any questions that may be thrown at them and update your CRM at the same time with any new information that they glean on the call. And it's exactly the same with chatbots. So remember those bots that appeared on websites, and they were all pre-programmed with specific questions and answers, and you clicked on a question and it gave you a pre-programmed answer. Well, those days are over. There is a new wave of bots that are being trained using the information on your website, on your social media threads, your marketing messages, and they are able to have intelligent conversations based on what the consumers want to know rather than what the seller wants to tell them. Now, we've just launched an AI bot on our own website, which has been trained using all of our public-facing information. So if you want to test something out and just see how powerful these bots are, jump on our website and just play around with it. Because what that means is our website visitors can now get instant answers to any question they may have. Now, they may be asking about an upcoming live event or a summit that we're holding, or cash rewards that builders get. Maybe they just want to speak to a human being. But the beauty of this technology is that it's machine learning, and that means it gets smarter every day and it never forgets what it has just learned. And these chatbots can even be connected to internal standard operating procedures, so that new or even existing employees can ask questions about processes and get immediate answers, along with the exact process that needs to be followed step by step. And don't worry about your private information being freely shared by AI, because it won't. So long as you use a paid solution which enables you to create your own GPTs in your own workspace that sits outside of the public domain. And of course, when you receive an email now, you can either use ChatGPT to formulate a response, or even use one of the many dedicated email tools that will do it for you without you even having to leave your email platform. And if you're having meetings online, and if you're not already having meetings online, then you absolutely should be, because even if your prospect only lives 5 minutes down the road, a lot of those guys will jump at the opportunity to meet online because they are so time poor these days. But if you're already having meetings online, then tools that monitor your meetings and summarize them, those tools are absolutely gold, especially for builders who are constantly dealing with those he said, she said situations. Even phone conversations, they can be summarized by AI, making follow-up so much more effective and productive as well. And what about when a client raises a question regarding a gray area of your contract? Do you concede the point just in order to keep them happy? Or do you maybe engage a lawyer in order to understand what your legal position is? Or do you upload your building contract to ChatGPT and then ask it to review the question by reviewing your contract and providing you with a suggested response? And of course, you can even have ChatGPT create simple contracts such as concept agreements and prelim agreements for you as well. For full building agreements, you're probably still better off using one provided by a third party, like the NAHB. And there's many different reasons for doing that. But for more simple contracts, using ChatGPT to create and then maintain them is a great solution. And of course, if you are a Buildertrend user, then you've probably already seen how you can easily upload receipts and then have those items on the receipt matched with items in the product catalog. Now, what that does is it enables you to quickly and easily find products that are eligible for rebates from Buildertrend partners. So if you're not already using that feature, make sure you speak to your Buildertrend account manager, because that is free money right there waiting for you to claim it. And although I did take you through the process of creating different marketing prompts from scratch in ChatGPT earlier, there are faster and easier ways to use ChatGPT as well, by simply using pre-built GPTs that connect to ChatGPT. Now, for instance, if you're working on creating standard operating procedures, then rather than starting from scratch and trying to figure out where to start, or even even if you are going to use ChatGPT, you're still starting from scratch and you've got to prepare ChatGPT with different prompts. You can use a pre-built GPT like this one for creating SOPs, and that makes the whole process way faster and way easier. There's this meeting summarizer that you can also use to quickly bullet point the main discussion points and the next steps. Now, personally, I prefer to use Fathom.video, which is connected to Zoom. However, this is a great solution when you have a transcription of a meeting, which you may need summarized. There are GPTs for creating and editing images as well. So like I said at the beginning of this presentation, AI won't replace your staff. So you will still need organization charts, job descriptions, recruitment ads. And these are all things that ChatGPT can literally do for you. Plus, it can even read your incoming CVs and give applicants a rating, so that you then only spend time reviewing the best potential candidates. Now, I could go on, but hopefully you guys get the picture, because really the purpose of this presentation is to simply raise your awareness of what is possible with AI. The last thing I want to do is overwhelm you guys. So does that all make sense, guys? Let me know in the chat. Have you been inspired to dig deeper into AI? Let me know in the chat box if if you are inspired, what are you going to be looking at doing in terms of utilizing AI in your building company? And while we're waiting for some responses to come in, I do have something I'd like to share with you guys that will help you to get started with implementing an AI strategy in your building company. And again, it's not a training on how to use ChatGPT, although it does contain plenty of ChatGPT prompts that builders can use, but it covers the strategy for implementing AI in terms of creating a central information hub, getting AI added to your meeting agendas, and different AI tools that other builders are already using. Now, this toolkit, it is valued at $197, but as a thank you to you guys for showing up today, and as an appreciation as well for the fact Buildertrend have hosted this event, I'd like to provide all of you on this call with this AI toolkit that we've produced completely free. All you need to do is scan that QR code on your screen, or alternatively, maybe Andrew, if we can put a link in the chat, and you can either scan the QR code, or if you're not got a phone to hand, you can just click on the link and you can get this resource completely free of charge. So over to you, Andrew. I don't know, can you tell us any more about the AI that is being used in Buildertrend at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered the high level functionality of it really well. I think all I would really add to that is that's really our first dip of the toes into the AI waters, if you will, in our core product, right? So we've seen a lot of, I think, really great use cases coming into the chat. Things we're thinking about are, how do we use that to accelerate the process of, getting project updates to your customers. I think that was a really good one that showed up a number of times. I think what we're really excited about in general is how do we better connect the dots and give all of you insights, about how we could be doing things more efficiently, more effectively. We get a lot of interesting but anonymized information across accounts that I think could be used to help deliver you insights of, hey, are you relatively under scheduling this portion of your project? Can we automatically, for example, create a schedule from a proposal that was sent out there and approved? Are you relatively overpaying or underpaying for this aspect of your job? Like maybe you're overpaying for concrete compared to others in your area. Russ, that was a scenario you brought up actually earlier when you were prepping for this call. So there's so much potential for it. Like I said, that feature that you touched on with the cost inbox and rebates, that's only us dipping our toes in the water. It does go back to a first principles thing for me is I think it's a mistake to just use AI for AI's sake. We have to do it in a way that actually solves your problem and makes you more efficient and effective as builders. So those are the things as we kind of turn the corner, both into the second half of 2024 and really as we think about our 2025 product strategy, we're thinking about how can we use this in a way that actually makes your lives easier instead of just adding yet another chatbot.
Yeah. I think what's important as well with this is how you approach it because like I mentioned, we engaged some very highly paid consultants at the beginning to get us on track. And it struck me that the first question they all asked is how many staff are you looking to replace with AI? Like that was a a kind of like a model for them, like, let's get rid of 6 staff. And we said, we're not looking to replace anyone. We want to make the team more productive. And I would really encourage everyone that's looking at this to think the same way as well, because if we can make our teams more productive, that paves the way for better profitability and future growth as well. And if we just look at replacing people, it kind of feels like we're standing still. So invest in your team, really bring them on board for the journey as well. Let them know they're part of this. You don't want your team to feel threatened in any way and reluctant to use AI because they feel their job's threatened. So you really got to work hard on managing their expectations and allow them to see the future that you see as the owner of the business.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The way I like to think about AI is you can use as a force multiplier for your people, not a replacement. Because as clever as AI is today and as clever as it could be in the future, in a lot of situations, there's still no substitute for a human being and their experience, the nuance of thinking that they have. So I don't think it's to that point today, and I think it'd be a mistake to kind of use it as a potential like replacement for staff in a lot of situations.
Yeah, I think I'm excited to see what develops with Buildertrend because I think the companies that have the data which you guys do, that's going to be extraordinary over the next 12 months. There's so much potential there, which enables builders, to benchmark. We've seen how important benchmarking is with the State of the Residential Construction Industry report, where builders can take part in the survey and then see how they compare against the rest of the industry, because there's so much bad information that kind of gets verbalized especially in terms of margins and expectations, charging for quotes and all that kind of thing. So to see the facts really helps builders. So with the kind of information you guys have got as well, that's going to really, really help builders because in terms of like running their operations better and more efficiently.
That's exactly right. I'm really excited about the potential to take a lot of those insights that, to your point today, you have to, be up to speed with a lot of industry publications or reading some of those special reports. And how do we bubble those up in the right context, in the right place and time, in the right job, or at the company level within the product? That's where I see a ton of potential for AI directly in Buildertrend going forward.
Yeah, exciting times, and it is a
Absolutely.
truly unique moment in history. I think that we actually stand on at the moment, especially as business owners. There's a massive opportunity ahead of us. We've just got to choose the right path in order to take advantage of it.
That's right. I'm seeing questions about the recording. I don't know, Russ, if you have any preferred product for reviewing resumes or anything like that. That's one very specific question in the chat.
No, see, it's very, very early. We have a few developments in progress at the moment, but we're also like the more complex ones, we're bringing outside developers. So I mean, just to like give you like an indication of that calling, because we do a lot of events, there's a lot of calling to confirm. So because that's more complex, we brought in outside developers, and that should be launched next month. So that's going to be really exciting, because we've seen the testing and it's very, very natural. So that's quite exciting development. But for simpler things like the AI bot that we use on the website, we developed in-house using an existing platform because it kind of existed. So that meant we could buy a platform and then just do it ourselves, the rest. But I haven't come across like a platform for the CV reading. It's just a case of that's where you can, when you know what you're looking at in a CV, you can write that into the prompt yourself. And then based on the results, you can refine that prompt. I think that's the real exciting thing about chat GPTs. You don't need any coding knowledge. And with the voice activation as well, you can literally upload a CV into chat GPT and you could say, ask it questions about it. Does it hit these like non-negotiable criteria? And it will come back with an answer for you. But maybe the answer isn't quite what you're looking for. So you might refine that instruction. But once you've got it refined, you can then save it as your own GPT for reviewing CVs, and then you use it on all of them going forward. So it does make it very easy to do your own development to a certain level. But, you know, when we've looked, there wasn't a product, but when there is, that might be an even better, solution. But I would encourage everyone to play around themselves, because I think when you start developing your own GPTs, which is basically a saved prompt, then you'll get a better understanding of how AI and ChatGPT works, but also you'll get ideas for the future. And that might lead to then like searching out ready-made solutions.
Yeah, similar question. Similar question about GPT or other AI used to analyze PDFs. I think it's largely the same, right? I think if you give the AI a good prompt about what this is, types of questions you're trying to answer, most GPTs out there, whether free or paid, can read and analyze PDFs as long as you give it the right prompt and again the right questions you're trying to answer.
Yeah, and everyone's going to be different on what they're looking for, in a CV. Some people might be looking for a pulse, others want a few more qualifications included in it. But crikey, when we advertise our jobs, it takes something like 100 applicants to take on, say, a sales person, and for a coach, that number is closer to 1,000. So that is a lot of CVs that have to be reviewed and read and discarded, and a lot of them can be discarded really easy because not sure. You might be the same, where you have a very specific process for people applying, because that enables you to filter out people that don't follow a process, for instance. So that becomes a very easy prompt to write. Were these parts in the process out? Were they hit?
That's exactly right. Again, it's just about like, what are you looking for? What are the questions you're trying to answer? Whether it's looking at candidates, resume screening, or if you're looking at to Clay's question in the chat, analyzing, an invoice, purchase order, or something like that. It's all just about what is the question you're trying to answer, and you also have to take a lot of times the answer that you get from the GPT, especially in those cases, with a grain of salt. I look at it more as a starting point, especially when it comes to resumes and people, more so than the definitive answer a lot of the time.
Yeah, a great one I would recommend for everyone as well is the email, because rather than like just starting blind and asking ChatGPT to respond to an email, if you actually create a prompt which kind of outlines your style, etc. And originally we did this, and everyone had their they all started using this naturally and had their own prompts. And what we were able to do, our head of operations created a GPT for company wide, which then had a company voice and structure. So that means we're now all answering emails in the same way, which means a lot of your stuff can then be delegated, as well, but, it makes it so quick. It also makes it very easy for you to respond, because you're you'll literally just record like an overview of how you want to respond. And yeah, sometimes, I mean, especially for the high Ds amongst us, yeah, we just want to do like a one word response or a one sentence response. And that doesn't always come across very well to a client. We have to pad it out a bit, show a bit of empathy. And that's something that ChatGPT can do as well. We can say, like, yeah, tell them no.
Right.
And ChatGPT will then build out this nice email with empathy. And it's a much more professional way to respond. And funny, I'm talking to builders. I was talking to a builder about one of his sales members, and he said, "Oh yeah, the trouble is they lack a bit of empathy, so some of their responses aren't that good." And I said, "Well, this is what you need to be doing then, because it keeps all your responses company wide consistent." There's another thing that we're just looking into. I mean, talking of like pre-made solutions, there's a solution out there that will actually monitor your sales team as well.
Hmm.
And so if you've got a process that you need them to follow, hardest thing about managing staff really is making sure that processes are followed. So having a system that monitors sales calls, for instance, and were these qualification questions answered, as an example, that's one of the hardest things I think with managing people. You can set this system up to do that and then flag exceptions when a call wasn't handled correctly. So in what it can do is actually manage, well, not so much manage, but manage to a certain extent, but coach your team as well. So the uses are they're coming thick and fast and phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen some amazing products in that space. Gong is one that comes to mind, but yeah, it's only going to get better and better as the technology continues to progress at a breakneck pace.
Yeah.
One last question, Russ, I see in the chat, and then we'll probably call it because we're a good 10 minutes over our time already. You may or may not know the answer to this, but I see Lauren asks, is there a good AI to automate accounts payable entry? Do you know of anything in that
So
category?
accounts payable, it's not that that's not something we've actually looked at ourselves, simply because we've got an incredibly simple process in-house. But I guess maybe if you can give me a bit more context, what in how would you need to use it for accounts payable? Because yeah, I just need to understand it, because in your accounts package you'd have a list of people to pay. So yeah, not quite understanding what they would need to improve there to save time.
Yeah, that's fair. She says we have about 1,000 invoices from some contractors that are entered or coded in manually. So basically automating the flow of that into
Oh, I
like the right
see. So
account.
not the not the accounts process, but the processing of the invoicing. Well, is that something that with the Buildertrend AI is doing with the OCR scanning?
It doesn't do that quite yet. It's more looking at a line item level, like not at the individual, if say you just like dropped a batch of invoices into Buildertrend, it won't drop those into like the right jobs, the right accounts, or anything like that quite yet. Although I do think that's an interesting potential use case again.
Okay, yeah. So I guess in that respect, I would direct the research towards OCR scanning.
Hmm.
Yeah, because there's solutions there, and the advice I would give is go for the biggest company you can find, because that will be the one integrating with Buildertrend most likely in the future.
Yeah, that's a great call. Awesome. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. Again, we're 12 minutes over. Great talk today, Russ. Thank you for all of your knowledge and insight and for sharing it. Thank you for that free, again, for limited time only resource. While you can, please feel free to scan that QR code that was also linked in the chat a little bit ago. Again, we'll let everybody go. Russ, thanks for joining us very early again in your time. We really appreciate you taking the time, effort, and energy to impart your knowledge on everybody here
Ah,
today.
thanks so much for having me, Andrew. Really enjoyed chatting with you, and thanks to everyone that turned up as well. Appreciate you turning up, guys, and thank you for your feedback.
Awesome. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Thanks for coming.